Here we go. Welcome, Average Joe Nation from around the globe. Props to you for staying up to date and keeping in the know. With fantasy football, man, very soon you'll reign. The knowledge that these three guys have, man, it is insane. Yeah, fantasy football talk hateful eight, they wear the crown. Hold it down. Pickle, Blackburn, and Trimboli, hold it down. Pulling up to the recording studio, we're getting loud. Getting ready, headphones on, red light go, break it down.
Welcome back to the Hateful Eight Fantasy Football Podcast with your host. I'm Pickle, and with me as always, Blackburn.
What's up?
And Trimboli.
What's going on?
I'm doing well. How are you today?
Fantastic.
I'm peachy.
Peachy.
Blackburn's back. All right.
Man, I wish I would have thought. See, this is things that you think of at last minute.
We're just on the fly.
It is. Anyways, today you joined us on the Bounce Back Players episode. So it's more so players that we feel had a poor 2018 season with high hopes, and based on situational change, whether it's a team change or player changes, coaching changes, offensive schemes, they are going to have a bounce back year and be what they should have been last year. So we each got a couple players that we're going to discuss. Some players you may know. I mean, I'm pretty sure everybody picked people that everybody should know. It's not like the forgotten person. I'm pretty sure. Or am I wrong?
Let's hope everyone knows these people.
Well, if you don't know, you probably shouldn't be playing fantasy football.
This is also true. So you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, any of the podcast platforms, and then also on DATV for the Dayton viewers, 10:30 p.m. on Fridays, as well as 4 p.m. on Sundays. So I was going to say, before we get too far into it, we did, people had asked how we were doing and everything post the active shooter situation in the local Dayton area. We responded to Twitter. We had responded back to people on Facebook. We will attach a link within the video as well as on the podcast side for the local Dayton Foundation to donate and contribute to the foundation that's going to be for the victims and the families of those victims. So, but let's go ahead and get into the fantasy news and notes.
Fantasy news and notes.
All right, fantasy news and notes. It's starting to ramp up. It seems like almost daily there's the noise, the sound effect that Blackburn can actually probably. Can you do the sound effect better?
No.
Okay. Anyways.
He's like, denied.
Denied. No, so not only is it for fantasy news, but also you can host your fantasy league, which we have our listener league on. But there's also a group forum that you guys can talk to different people and use it as more of a social media platform without truly being on social media. So any questions, any concerns, anybody you want to throw in there and say, hey, this is what I've got. What do you guys think? Should I draft this guy? Should I draft that guy? Who do you think's better ranked wise? I mean, they have all these different opportunities out there. Plus, within, like we said, the sleeper fantasy football playing platform, they have Dynasty Keeper. They have all the different settings you can change. So, and they just released dark mode on the mobile version, and they are finalizing the dark mode on the PC side. So, I mean, which is nice for. I like the dark mode. I know we've talked about that anyways, so I think it's a little bit easier on the eyes. So
absolutely.
All right, so we're not going to have too many of the news and notes today, but Seahawks running back Chris Carson appears to have the firm grasp over Rashad Penny at this point in the training camp. So
yeah.
I know. I put
guy
this in
loves
there
it.
because he's all in on Chris Carson.
But really, does it change anything? I
No,
think we knew this going
we knew
in.
it. Penny's
So,
going to be the receiving back. Carson's going to be the load guy.
There you go.
So now this one was kind of a shock. Came out earlier this week. Deonta Foreman was dropped or released from the Texans, and then within 48 hours, once he
24 hours once he cleared waivers.
He hit waivers. He got picked up by the Colts, which is an interesting fact. And then you come to find out that Spencer Ware went to the IR, so kind of makes sense. They dropped running back to pick up another one. So I don't think it really matters for max value. I think it more so pushes the guys behind him.
So Hines?
Yeah.
I think Hines has a defined role. I think he's just going to be a legit backup to Marlon Mack.
Okay.
I just think the Colts just took a flyer on him to see if they could reboot his career.
Yeah, because he wasn't doing nothing in Houston.
No. I mean,
that does boost Lamar Miller, though.
It does.
Absolutely.
It tells you that they feel, even though we've not heard any pro Lamar Miller talk out of camp from the Texans, the fact that they went silent all offseason so far, and then Deonta Foreman gets booted And they really don't have a stable. I mean, they have a rookie in Crockett that's there, and he's about the only one that's competing for the backup spot at this moment. So,
Well, unless they make a splash with a huge free agent here, they're talking about bringing in a veteran presence only as a backup role, though.
right. And I know we had talked about. I'd heard Duke Johnson, and then there was another running back that had been kind of rumored.
Ajayi.
Ajayi, yeah.
So, and I think, to me, Ajayi comes in.
I'd be afraid that Jay Ajayi would overtake Lamar Miller.
See, that's what I'm
my
saying.
thing.
If they truly like Lamar Miller and they want to run out the contract with him, I say they pick up like Duke Johnson,
yeah.
make a move for him, or they let this rookie Crockett just run behind him, and and we'll just run out his contract essentially. But if they do bring in a guy, I think that's when I don't think that they're as enamored with Lamar Miller. But they really didn't make any moves. They could have got Bell. They could have got some of these other guys. I don't think that they'll make a move for Gordon because I just think that the Chargers have pretty much put their foot down and said, we're not trading you. You can basically pound sand, I guess is the best way to put it. That we're not trading you, so you can either sit or you can basically come in on the contract that we offered you, which I think is somewhere in the $9 to $10 million a year. So it's not Bell or Gurley money, but it would put him up there in the Devonta Freeman range. So
We had an interesting point before the show started is San Francisco is probably going to cut someone.
Yeah, they're gonna have to cut somebody.
They could
Somebody.
easily they
And
could
they-
land it as a
And
backup
they said
role.
Matt Breida's been all. No, they said Breida's been all over the place on the field. They're using him everywhere. I think it's going to be McKinnon. They just signed Tevin Coleman to a pretty big contract. McKinnon's coming off an ACL and he's still owed money.
Right.
I think he could be the guy that gets cut.
yeah, that's a valid point. And I mean, Shanahan could be just premiering him and promoting him,
Sure.
McKinnon, to get his name back out there for value for trade purposes.
So we're
but
waiting. Preseason starts today.
This is true.
I mean, we could sit here and all the injuries that always pile up on
Yep.
preseason. They could just hold that out there. Hey, we
Right.
got this trade right here for you.
This is true, man.
It's like that Geico commercial with that dollar. You got to be quicker.
Got to
than
be
that.
quicker than that.
Oh, so close. And then the last one, we've got the running back holdout going on. Let me get that drop for you.
Everybody's gonna pay. 'Cause the $1 million man always gets his way.
Brings me back to my childhood.
Kind of reminds me of Freddie.
Little
Kruger.
Bit, little bit.
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit.
This is true. I didn't even think about that. Thanks
But
for
yeah.
the nightmares. Anyways, but so Zeke and Melvin Gordon still not reporting, still holding out, as we'll call it, hold out mania. How about that?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I just feel like, because it's going to be crazy until one of them shows up. And I think that per contract, they've both been offered a generous, as their ownership has been, or the GMs and owners have said, we've offered them a generous contract and we're not budging. So
Well, if I read right, I mean, you'll know, but the Jerry Jones said they got offers for all three guys, Dak, Zeke, and Amari.
generous, as he said.
That'll put them in top 5 of each of their position, and that's still on the table.
Correct. And then Gordon, from my understanding, financially has been offered somewhere in the $10 million a year range, which I think, I know that he wants that Gurley and that Bell money, but it's based on the injuries that he has potentially,
Yeah.
and the fact that they have Eckler and Jackson behind him. I think a $10 million a year agreement or contract for him for 2 to 3 years with some serious guarantees involved in it because of injury purposes, I think that's a good spot to be in if you're Gordon, because you're not going to get any better.
Well, like we were talking about off the show, the NFL itself is devaluing the running back. You know,
Right.
teams are devaluing the running back. Plus, you don't want to pay that much money, especially if you're the Chargers, because then you got people like Bosa coming off, wanting new money.
Bosa will be in the same spot next year.
Right. I mean, Phillip Rivers, they're going to have to get a quarterback at some point.
can't
Mike
pay
Williams.
I would say
you can't pay
if Hunter
everybody.
Henry blows up or Mike Williams
Yeah.
blows up this year, they're going to want money next year. I
Right.
mean, it's a revolving door of money that people are going to want once they have a big year.
Well, unfortunately, and Philip Rivers is on the tail end of his career, so I don't know if I want to invest a ton of money in a running back when my quarterback might be out the door here soon.
right.
We're going to be in a rebuild.
True.
Exactly.
I'd rather get both on a rookie deal and start fresh.
True. I think, honestly, out of everything I'm hearing from both sides and both behind closed doors, it sounds like Zeke is closer to coming back than Melvin Gordon.
Well, Gordon's almost sounds personal right
It
now.
is at this
I think
point.
Zeke's is too.
I think Zeke is.
He said he's not going to play unless he gets a new contract. And I think with watching Le'Veon Bell last year, these guys watched him sit all year and then come back and get paid.
Yeah.
So they can do that.
I've had people ask. So for me personally, I think Zeke's more likely to be there week 1 than I think Gordon is, out of the two.
I agree.
But I still think that's a very viable opportunity or potential.
Well, my
that
ranking
neither
shows
one.
I don't think Gordon's going to be there week 1 either.
Right.
I've dropped him. So.
All right, so let's go ahead and get into segment number 2 for the day. Let's go ahead and get into Take It or Leave It.
Ask me the questions.
Take it or leave it.
All right, Take It or Leave It. The listener questions. First one out the gate, it's from Browse Do. I don't even. Is it Browdower?
Browsdower.
Browsdower. Is that like Bowser from? Never mind. Anyways,
It's Mario. I felt like I was in Mario with that song right there.
I was thinking.
Yeah, where's my mushroom?
Jeez.
Power up.
Power up. Anyways, it says, can you talk about the roster construction and draft strategy? It says, after all the research for players and targets to avoid, or target to or avoid, it says we still need to execute a plan. How much goes into roster construction? So he's talking about like stacking quarterbacks and wide receivers or quarterbacks and running backs, strength of schedules, double dipping on teams, all these different things. He's kind of wanting to know what is the general thought process in these, like stacking, or do you have a specific draft strategy that you try to?
Well, first it just depends on what you like.
Right.
Obviously, we're all running back heavy, so
Right.
I don't know if you're going to stack a running back and a quarterback, but if you go receiver heavy, you could stack a receiver and, like, say you grab Julio in round 1, you could get Matt Ryan in like 5 or 6.
Right.
And you could have that stack. That's a nice stack to have.
All right.
Well, the main construction of your roster, in my opinion, should be the positions you have 2 of, you need to go after early and often. So there's 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers.
Yes.
You need to make sure you get a abundance of those. I like to punt on quarterback only because you only need 1. I punt on tight end too normally. So I'd like to get, in a 15-man thing, I like to get 5 of maybe each, wide receiver and running back, if possible.
Yeah.
Give yourself the best options, going into week 1.
Yeah. Now, the other thing he said about double dipping is also in reference to like the same, like 2 wide receivers from the same team. So his reference was like Julio Jones and Calvin Ridley. Would you
No.
ever do that?
No, I try to avoid that at all costs.
Would you double dip a top wide receiver and a top running back was his other point. So like same team. So like we'll say a Zeke and an Amari Cooper or Julio Jones.
I mean,
and
you're kind of
Devonta
putting your
Freeman.
eggs in one basket because if they have a
Right.
bad offensive performance, then that's 2 major positions that you're going to take a goose egg on.
I guess in that scenario, if you're faced with it, you got to look at what else is available.
Yeah.
And if it's a tier breakdown, listen, I don't mind that they're on the same team. I'm going to take the guy in the better tier. That's just my opinion on that. But you got to look what else is there. But when you stack the wide receiver and quarterback, I don't make that a game plan going in. If it just happens to happen, trust me, that quarterback is looking a little bit more prime to me than it would normally.
Right.
And then his last point was, even though a lot of people have Hopkins at 5-6 draft spot wise, I find myself skipping him for a running back like David Johnson or Bell because when it comes back, I don't like seeing the running backs that I'm seeing. It says, and then missing out on a top 10 running back, which seem to be getting fewer by the day. So I'm assuming he means Zeke and Melvin Gordon holding out. So
The wide receiver pool is definitely deeper.
Mm-hmm.
However, talk about tiers. Hopkins is on a higher tier than I have Johnson or Bell on.
right,
My
I mean,
opinion.
I think that's my biggest thing. I mean, obviously we are gonna sitting at 5, you're really gonna mull over between Hopkins or David Johnson or Hopkins or Bell or something like that. But at the end of the day, unless you've got one of those top 4 running backs like Barkley, Zeke if he's going to be there, Kamara, CMC, I think that ultimately you got to make the draft pick for Hopkins because I just think that, like you said, he's just in a different tier for wide receivers. That I think him and Adams are in the same kind of spacing tier wise. But if you don't get a top 4 running back, then you really want a top 1 or 2 wide receiver.
Because if you take a Bell or a Johnson and you come back around, all those top tier receivers are going to be gone. Now you got 2 second tier guys instead of 1 first tier guy.
Right. So then you're kind of looking in that Amari Cooper range and some of these other wide receivers that, I mean.
If you're going to buy into Hopkins at that point, just know that eventually you're going to have to take a flyer on a rookie.
Yeah.
One of the rookie running backs.
Mm-hmm.
Like the Montgomerys of the world.
Right.
You're going to have to, and you just gamble.
Right.
Because that's what's going to be available for you because you're probably going to take a running back on the way back.
Right.
And then
But
at
you
that
could-
point, what's probably going to be a better value, I would think, of the third pick will probably be a wide receiver.
Absolutely. You could get a mid guy like a Freeman or a
Yeah.
Henry or somebody like that in the second round, come back in the third round and get a Cup, Boyd, Lockett, somewhere like that, and you'd be sitting all right.
True. All right. Then CRBZ says Aaron Jones, Marlon Mack, Kerryon Johnson. Who do you have in that, and what order? Full PPR.
Want me to go first?
Yeah,
Sure.
go ahead. I already know what you're going to say.
Carry on. Jones, Mack.
I have Mack, Kerryon, and Jones.
Wow. I have Kerryon, Mac, Jones.
I knew that. I didn't.
I'm on the Kerryon train,
I like
finally.
It. I like it. Listen, it feels better when we're both on this train. I like it.
Well, you got company now.
Listen, Mac doesn't catch enough. You like that in a full PPR?
Mac caught a lot last year, but I'm not sold on Jones.
No, I mean is over carry on. They called about the same.
Oh yeah. No, well,
Maybe a little less.
what's his name left Detroit?
I gotta think. Yeah, once
Once
Theo Riddick left.
Once Theo Riddick left, Kerryon shot up my boards
Mine too.
dramatically.
No, I'm
I
not
mean, you
saying
were
that-
already high on him.
Right.
I was like, eh.
I think
but
I got him at RB12 right now in the PPR.
once that happened, I mean, he shot up for me.
I mean, I'm not saying that I think that like there's a big difference between Mack and Kerryon, and I might switch between the day and how the day goes, but I just think that they both are going to be heavily involved in their offense. I just like the overall potential for scoring purposes. I think that the Colts offense is going to put more points on the
Well,
board
yeah,
than
they
I
got a
think the Detroit Lions will.
better
and I
offense.
think the
Fair
Lions
enough.
are going to be playing from behind a lot, which, yes, in theory would help Kerryon, but I also think that they're going to have to stretch the field with the wide receivers and get them more involved. Plus, it sounds like they're really, really liking T.J. Hawkinson and using him a lot.
Right.
So,
Well, no, that's fine. I just didn't think Mac is involved enough in the passing game for me to put him up.
I think
above
the
the
only,
other two.
the small difference between me is just the offensive potential scoring.
Yep.
That's literally the only difference.
That's why I put him above Jones. Plus,
Well, see, that's why.
Jones is unknown for
Yeah.
me. Like, I don't know.
So, all right. Bry MC says this is really specific, but when drafting in leagues with 3 wide receivers and a flex, are you more inclined to go wide receiver at the turn in a 10-team league? So saying like a Thomas, Julio, or Hill versus running backs like Connor Mixon. So he's saying, would you, in a 3 wide receiver with a flex, would you be more apt to go wide receiver heavy at the turn or running back heavy? Because you got to fill more.
To
wide
me, it just
receivers.
depends on who falls to you at that point.
Okay, so if you're looking at, we'll just say, like
So-
you said, Thomas, Julio, and Hill are the wide receivers, or running backs are Connor Mixon at the 10.
So out of those examples, which one would I rather have?
well, would you rather do the
If
two of the wide receivers out of this group, or both the running backs?
Give me the three. Give me those 3 receivers.
Okay,
That's pretty nasty.
If
And
you
I'm a running
if,
back
if you
guy.
can get Thomas, Julio, and Hill,
right,
you need to play with those guys for as long as you can because you're about to rack up some championships.
right. Because Thomas is probably going to be the end of the first. Julio's going to be your second round pick, and then coming back around, it's going to be Hill's going to be your third round pick because that seems to be where Hill's going around that second, third.
I've seen him going in the last couple of mock drafts, but yeah, I mean Mixon and Connor are
It's
good,
just-
but
The example I see this is hard because in this example, how do you not take those 3 wide
Exactly.
receivers? But it's not realistically going to be this way.
No.
I would probably in a 3 wide receiver set though. I'm probably still going wide receiver first, my first round if possible. If one of these 3 guys are sitting there because it's the premiums there now. Again,
Well,
like I
that-
said earlier, you're not playing 2 anymore. You're playing 3.
exactly.
So you got to get them all. You got to
Plus
get the
a
big
flex,
ones while you can.
which could
Right.
be
Yeah,
wide
plus
receiver as well.
another. So you could potentially
Right.
have 4 wide receivers.
You almost got to not devalue the running back, but you got to push it back a little bit because
Right.
potentially you're only playing 2 where you might play 4 wide receivers.
Yes.
All right, and then Boomer Sooner 35 says, which rookie would you gamble on in a redraft at the running back or wide receiver position to produce this year? So which running backs are we?
Josh Jacobs.
Well,
for
Josh,
me.
yeah, it should be. I think he's well. At least he's my number 1. So.
He's
I really think David Montgomery though.
well,
that's who I would pick.
Well, David Montgomery is who I'd gamble on.
Right, that's who I'm
I
gambling on.
just don't like it because Cohen's there.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand that they're going to have each their different roles, but Josh Jacobs they said he's going to be the 3-down back. He's catching. He's doing it all.
Yeah.
Give me
So
him
if
all
you-
day.
So if you had to take a rookie wide receiver,
Um,
Well, there's 2 big ones that stand out:
Yeah.
N'Keal Harry and DK Metcalf.
yeah.
I would take N'Keal Harry just because they need options there in New England. But my surprise is Andy Isabella for
Yeah.
the Cardinals.
well, I like that. So
I was
going
gonna say him. He was the one I was gonna ready to mention. I was like, I just feel like he is flying under the radar, and he's just kind of that. I don't want to say like undersized wide receiver because I mean he essentially is. I mean he's kind of like the Edelman. He's kind of like the Amendola.
He's the Edelman of the spread offense.
and they're just gonna throw it a ton. So why? I mean, take a late round flyer because he's not going. in like the 8th or 9th round. He's going back into the draft, so I mean, almost undrafted.
Right.
So
Well, and Harry's struggling to pick up the playbook. It's not been good news out of camp. And then Metcalf, for me, I think he's going to be touchdown dependent. I just don't think
I
there's
do
going to be
too.
enough volume there.
It's going to be a run-heavy offense, and I think the throwing downs will go to Lockett.
Right.
So,
all right, and the final question of today, Pouch King 2 says Cooper Kupp or Chris Godwin in a full PPR.
there's two ways you could look at this. I like Cooper Kupp. We all know this. And that offense is scary.
Mhm.
However, the flip side of that is there's a lot more mouths to feed in the Rams offense than there is in Tampa Bay.
True.
Arians said, though, Godwin wasn't, quote, coming off the field. I would still take Kupp.
I think and they're going pretty much around the same spot in ADP purposes, so you can't really say, well, I'd take him at his ADP versus because I don't like Godwin's or vice versa. So they're going within less than 10 picks of each other. So to me, that's not really a big difference in ADP purposes. So I just feel like Jared Goff and Cooper Kupp are BFFs. And when Kupp went down with the injury, the offense took a step back. It wasn't like a drastic, like they suck now, but it was.
You could tell. Yeah.
And Woods took a leap forward as well as Cooks, but it just wasn't the same. The offense wasn't just running on all cylinders. So I like Cooper Kupp, and it's not a big difference, but I like Cooper Kupp just a little bit more. But it wouldn't surprise me if Godwin and Kupp are at the end of the year pretty much the same points for fantasy-wise.
I think we're splitting hairs, but actually I'm going to disagree. I like Godwin. I just like the idea he's not coming off the injury that Kupp's dealing with. And let's see, we need Cooper Kupp to be the red zone monster in order for him to have the return on value.
True.
So if that's not all there, I like Godwin. But really, we're splitting hairs here.
Right.
All right, let's go ahead and get into the final segment today. It is bounce back players.
Baby, come back. Ooh. You can blame it all on me. I was wrong, and I just can't live without you.
Oh man, bounce back players.
Where'd you get my shower,
Shower
recording at?
playlist? That was you were
That was
singing?
me.
I really don't want to know.
We'll talk about that out there. Anyways, presented by Trophy Smack. Trophy Smack, 1,000 different customizations for your trophies. They also have championship rings, championship belts, and then the newly added draft boards, which you just got ours in.
Yep, 2 days ago. 2 days ago.
And they got. You said that there's some extras. It's not just the regular player
No,
stickers.
it's got the board, the player stickers, and it's got Smack Talk stickers.
Perfect.
You got to love that.
Yeah.
I know a couple people that will have those on their player picks.
Oh yeah.
And someone can wear them on their backs.
So, jeez. So, but the draft board's $39, free shipping on anything on the site. So that's the big thing. And if you use the promo code TH8FF ring, you get a free championship ring with your purchase of the trophy. So that's the big to do. So, so why don't we go, Blackburn? Why don't you kind of tell us who's your two players for bounce back this year?
Quickly, my two bounce back players are. I started with quarterback Derek Carr.
You think he's got all the check engine lights taken care of?
Or
do you think he's got slow oil leak a little bit still?
I don't know. We'll see.
It's off the blocks?
It's off.
No, it's not off the blocks.
Oh, okay. We got three
He's at
wheels.
least got some donuts on there, but no. Right now his ADP is 14.9, so I mean that's pretty much a steal.
It's almost a
at this
throwaway
point.
at this point. That's perfect.
Right. He's got some legitimate weapons now. He's got Antonio Brown, even though he's dealing with frozen feet. Tyrell Williams is a serviceable receiver in L.A. They still got Ryan Grant, who did well in Washington and Indianapolis, and then this is my pick. I do a wide receiver pick every year that I think is going to do very well. This guy is Hunter Renfrow from Clemson.
Yeah, he showed up in the Hard Knocks like the first episode, and they've talked highly about him. Gruden has. I mean,
Mike Mayock was like enamored with this kid.
Yeah.
He's a beast.
He was the one. Wasn't he the one that scored the game-winning touchdown there with Deshaun Watson in the national championship a few years ago? So I mean, I think he's kind of like the Andy Isabella. He's just a short, undersized receiver that can get in and out of cuts and in and out of coverage without being seen.
Well, you're gonna have Brown and Tyrell running the outside, and he's gonna take that inside.
Josh Jacobs running up the middle. I mean,
yeah, and that's another thing. Josh Jacobs, they finally, we don't know how he's gonna be yet, but I think this is finally we're gonna see a serviceable run game under Gruden, which he's always had a good running team, and that'll open up stuff for Carr.
I'm on board with Derek Carr as a late second quarterback, especially if I'm punting. For two reasons. If I'm taking an early quarterback, like if I'm taking a Patrick Mahomes or I'm taking a Luck or somebody up in those Watson up in the first like 5 or 6 rounds. Carr is somebody that I feel like you could sit and pick at the 14th round pick and stack up on all your wide receivers, running backs, take him at the end of your draft, and just sit him on the bench and see what he really kind of turns into with Gruden. And if Gruden doesn't like him, Gruden's not going to be shy to put him to the bench and say, okay, well, Nathan Peterman, you can't do any worse. And then Nathan's like, hold my beer, let me go in here and throw 12 picks.
Yeah, that's my only reserve with Derek Carr is I don't know if they're behind him yet. But I mean,
I don't know. I mean,
you're like I said, you're getting it 14th round. I mean,
it's a throwaway pick, like you said.
yeah, in his career, he's only finished as a QB1 once. That was 2016.
But that was when he had,
monster year.
but he had a bunch of weapons in that
Exactly,
offense.
exactly.
I mean,
last year was kind of like, Cooper got traded. Jared Cook was their best weapon. They
Their
were dealing with a
defense
bunch
was
of
awful.
injuries. Their defense was terrible, and their running game was terrible.
And it was Gruden's first year, so it was a lot of new language, a lot of new offensive style play kind of being implemented.
Derek Carr is someone I think you can get just undrafted, wait a couple weeks, let the offense start to gel. Then I think he starts balling out a little bit.
Yeah, I don't mind Derek Carr as a late round pick, or even like you said, a first pick off of waivers for sure. Because
Yeah.
I mean, going
at the 14th round. I mean, that's
I just
what do
wish
you have
he
to
ran.
lose?
At this point, I just wish he could run. A scrambling guy, because right now that gets points in fantasy.
well. That's the
so.
only thing that worries me is if he takes a huge hit, how's that back going to react? And we'll be right back to where we were last year.
Right.
But I like him as a good bounce back candidate. I almost put Kirk Cousins here.
I really thought that was who the name was going to be coming
It was
through.
close, but he's been a QB1. He still finished QB1 last year, but
Yeah, and his ADP is a little bit higher.
again, new system. When DeFilippo left or whatever, they started playing good. Minnesota's going to be awesome this year.
Right. All right, then who's your final guy for this?
Devonta Freeman.
Man, he's going to be so good this year.
I think so.
Health wise
Yeah.
is about the only concern that I have.
Well, that's a concern with all these players, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, ADP right now, he's round 3, pick 8. He's the RB 18. He's the guy.
Oh yeah.
I mean, Ito Smith's there, but he's the guy.
Tevin Coleman's gone.
Right. Coleman's out of the way. Dirk Cutter's coming back as offensive coordinator.
Love that.
They love to use the running backs in the pass game. He's really not injury prone. Besides last year, from 2014 to 2017, he's only missed 3 games.
Well, and I think the cliche for fantasy purposes is like injury prone is they're injured because it's fresh in your memory, and it. For whatever reason, players now Sammy Watkins is an injury prone player. He's literally the cliche.
Jordan Reed, injury prone.
A guy to me that gets
Tyler
hurt one
Eifert.
year out of like 6 years is not injury prone. It's only because it was last year and we had people drafted him really high and they got let down because of it. Hence why he's a bounce back player.
Right. Well, when 2015, 2017, he finished RB1, top 6 every year, and the Falcons last year were the 6th best offense in the league. I like Freeman.
What I like
a lot
about
this year.
Freeman is I think his volume will come down a little because they're going to try to preserve him. But he's a double-digit touchdown guy.
Oh, yeah.
Outside of the year where they switch offensive coordinators and then obviously his injured year. That's what I
And the
like about
passing game,
Freeman.
yeah.
So
But I think the X factor is Dirk Cutter coming back. I know people are like, well, he sucked in Tampa and everything. But yeah, but when he was in Atlanta under that offensive with Matt Ryan, that offense was balling.
Well, yeah. Besides last season, every year since his rookie year, 2014, he's had at least 30 receptions every year.
I don't see why. I mean, there's a lot of people out there within the fantasy football community that said
They're hating on him.
They're hating on him, or they're punting when they see him. They're like, nope, I'm not taking him. I'll take anybody else in that range. No, thank you.
you get burned by someone and it just sticks with you.
I know,
A lot of
but-
it's just personal preference. You just got to weed through it all.
I don't mind Devonta Freeman because
I
he's
don't
going into the 3rd round still. So
3-8, so almost
I'll
4th
take him.
round.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
right, thank you. All right, so for me, bounce back players, Jameis Winston's the first one. I know that's going to be kind of gross for people to hear, but the 2018 season for him was kind of a letdown. I know we were kind of most of the fantasy football world thought this is the year. He takes the leap. He's getting all these good comments coming out of camp, and then he gets a 3-game suspension, and then when he actually starts to come back to play, he ends up throwing 10 interceptions versus 6 touchdowns in the first 4 games, which gives him the benching and brings in Fitzmagic.
Well, it didn't help. Fitzmagic was out there throwing darts everywhere.
Right.
Throwing
balling.
up 400-yard games.
So then
Rocking that chain.
right,
and the
Fitzmagic
beard,
then
come
gets
on.
hurt, or not hurt, but starts playing like Fitzmagic does about midway through the season. Then they bring back Jameis, and for the last 7 games, he only had 4 interceptions and 13 touchdowns, which put him in the quarterback 8 at that time frame, which is what you kind of expected for the season, a top 10 quarterback potential. So, but for me, when I looked at it, you got Mike Evans, who's healthy, Godwin, who seems to be all they want and more, and then you got O.J. Howard's going to be back healthy. They really don't have a run game. That's the big thing. They really don't have an established run game. They got Peyton Barber, Ronald Jones, the third. Rolo's apparently beefing up. I don't know. So, and the biggest thing for me,
Eating those Rolos.
The biggest thing for me is Bruce Arians coming in as the head coach. That's like Dirk Cutter for Devonta Freeman. I think Bruce Arians is the X factor for Jameis Winston, because he has taken quarterbacks and that were even good and it put them up in that great. I mean, he resurrected Carson Palmer's career pretty much.
Absolutely.
I mean, Carson Palmer was a forgotten quarterback and a lame duck out there, and then he comes into Arizona and starts blowing it up again, like he was in Cincinnati in his earlier career. So, I just feel like the way that he's being drafted is in the 11th round. He just has that top 10, top 8 potential this year. There's so many opportunities in the passing game alone that has him. If they can figure out something running back wise,
I've wanted him and Mariota to do something for forever, and they
Correct.
just don't.
they
But
have.
I like the potential this year with Arians.
Right, and the concern you have with Winston is the same concern you have every year with him. It's between the ears.
Right.
If that guy shows up, it's going to be the same. I'm going to throw a bunch of picks, not a lot of touchdowns. If Bruce Arians can reel that in, you got potential.
Well,
to be a
good thing is
stud.
they don't have Fitzmagic sitting behind him no more, waiting
Right.
in the wings. It's him now.
Right, and he's got all the confidence in the world from Arians. Arians done nothing but promote him and pick him up and say, "You're the guy. We like you. We want you. We're going to do good things this year," so on and so forth.
If they could get Rolo going in like a David Johnson, I know
Yeah.
we're not going to compare him, but
No.
if they can get him in like a David Johnson type role, that would be tremendous.
Right. Well, and that was my biggest thing, is if they can get some sort of run game. It doesn't even have to be one back. It could be both Barber and
Rolo.
I wanted to say Rolo. I was trying to say his name. But anyways, Ronald Jones. But
Ronald
anyways,
Jones.
Rolo for him. I just think if they can get something, that's better than nothing, because I think
Right.
that's another thing that helps a quarterback that's struggling. And the defense is going to be better in Tampa. I just think we're just looking at a better situation for Winston overall. So,
I agree.
It's Rojo.
Rojo, Rolo.
Get it? Ronald Jones.
Yeah. I know.
I know it's Rojo, but I like saying Rolo.
I do too.
I like it, especially since he
I
put on
said-
weight. But anyways,
No, he was struggling to figure it out. I was like,
I know.
Rojo.
And then the last one for me is Allen Robinson. I just think he's been forgotten from fantasy football owners because,
His quarterback stinks.
well, 2 years ago, coming out of Jacksonville, he got injured in 2017. Never really got fully healthy until a couple games into last year, and by that time he missed all the offseason stuff and kind of getting the new relationship with Mitch Trubisky and that new offense in general coming in. I just think there was a lot going on for Allen Robinson and against him to not help him out. But just for fantasy purposes, for the first 6 weeks, he was a top 30 wide receiver, even though he had no real, like, I guess you could say camaraderie or whatever, like chemistry. There you go. He wasn't a math guy. That's science, actually. Anyways,
in science, but
it is whatever. Anyway, so I just like the fact that he's gotten. This is the first offseason since the big year that he had in Jacksonville, where he's not coming off of an injury. He's got a whole offseason with Mitch Trubisky and whole offseason with Nagy. I think the run game's going to be much better this year. His only competition is Anthony Miller. I mean, Shaheen's not really been said too much about.
No.
Trey Burton's still coming off of the surgery. I think it was a sports hernia that he had.
Yeah.
So he's not really performing out in training camp right
That
now.
could linger, by the way.
Right. So to me, I think he is the guy. He's the wide receiver one in an offense that's going to be better. And if anything says how Nagy coached in Kansas City as the quarterback coach or even as the offense coordinator, he is going to find a way to get his best wide receiver option. They did bring in Riley Ridley, Calvin's younger brother, but I think he's going to have the wide receiver rookie year where he's just kind of hit and miss. So I think Allen Robinson is the benefactor in this wide receiver group. But
I hope Trubisky can learn from Wilson and from Newton's history, where you can't run the ball all the time. He's going to have to either A, get out of the way, or start throwing it more, which if he starts throwing it more, stops taking the hits, that's where Allen Robinson, I think, takes a bump up. So
right. ADP's 805 in a 10 team. So I just think he has top 20 potential easy right now with all that's going into that offense. But
I'm just not a fan. I'm not even going to look at him, I'll be honest. He's in that Jarvis Landry area for me. I'm not even looking
Listen,
at him.
I don't totally disagree with you on that either. So I kind of like Anthony Miller late.
Yeah.
I'd rather just get Cohen. He's going to get enough targets anyway.
There you go.
Give me David Montgomery.
David Montgomery. All right, so that's all for me. Who are your two guys?
All right, right out of the gate, I got Dalvin Cook.
I like it. I thought about that.
Is that a fan favorite?
Oh, man, I love Cook.
He loves Dalvin Cook.
He does.
Listen, I argued for him last year, and I really didn't have any leg to stand on. Neither did he. But anyways,
Didn't.
he finished RB 30 last year, and this year I got him ranked as RB 10.
Wow.
Just like you alluded to earlier, and once they fired the offensive coordinator, DeFilippo, the offense totally changed. It went from not being pass heavy anymore, more to a 50-50 split, and then all of a sudden Dalvin Cook went back to being Dalvin Cook. Here's the numbers. His first 5 games, he had 44.4 points. His last 6, 107.6.
Yeah.
There's a big difference
that's a
in
big
there.
difference.
Roughly averaging 18 points a game in the last 6 games.
Yeah, they turned it on.
Right.
Even Kyle Rudolph showed up.
Absolutely. So
I was
just
going to say, that was my thing, noticing that Kyle Rudolph showed back up. Even
Yeah.
though the tight end whisper was Filippo, he, literally disappeared off the face of the
I
earth.
feel like he just tried to overthink it. He saw he had all these new shiny toys everywhere and then, just totally crapped the bed.
Yep.
Look at that. That was perfect.
That was
Anyways.
perfect.
Anyways.
That was almost like a sound drop.
So, yeah. Anyways, for me, it's Dalvin Cook is just because they're going to go back to the old ways. And he's finally healthy coming into a season. So,
Yeah.
I'm all in on Dalvin Cook.
I like it.
And then my last one is, my man crush of the year. It's Carson Wentz, man. I'm all in on Wentz this year.
Did we take him in the listener league?
We did.
Okay.
Because you guys finally listened to me.
I just felt like we had to give you one good pick.
And we got a stack.
Indeed.
Because I think Alshon Jeffries is going to be a sneak play this year, too.
He
He could have been a bounce back
I
player.
almost thought about putting him as a bounce back, but I went with Allen Robinson
I should have
instead.
just done the stack in this.
There you go.
Anyways, he finished QB 22. I've got him ranked as quarterback 7. Currently, he's going at the 8th round, 801 QB 7.
Okay.
Like I said, I just think he's got the big play potential with the 33 touchdowns like he had in 2017. That's what I like. He's got a ton of weapons out there.
Absolutely.
Arguably, maybe some of the best skill players around him. I mean, getting Deshaun Jackson has shown everywhere he goes, the quarterback just plays better with him.
Sure.
And he's got a role everywhere. The 3 wide receivers, Aguilar, Jackson, and Jeffries now. And then I love the backs, Sanders and Howard.
Joho.
Yeah.
Rolo and Joho. Rojo.
When
Don't forget about that Zach Ertz guy.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's his BFF.
Dallas Goddard.
Goddard.
There's plenty of guys out there you can. There's just plenty of guys that you can. It's like a Rolodex of players. He's like, all right, who am I throwing in this
and
play?
Sproles is still there.
Right. Philadelphia's just loaded.
They are, and their defense is pretty good too.
As a
which
Cowboys
I
fan,
hate.
I don't like.
Yeah, as a Redskins fan, I hate it because we play in Week 1, and I'm not looking forward to it.
I'm all in on Carson Wentz after looking more. I know that earlier, a couple shows ago, I had said that my concern was the injury, and it's still there.
Yeah, that's.
But it's not like a deciding factor. Like I'm not drafting him because I'm not going to not draft him because of that. Because more often than not, you're probably taking 2 quarterbacks anyways, and this is a situation that you're going to let it ride.
If you can load up on receivers and running backs and get him in the 8th, 9th round, take it.
Now listen, I don't think all those guys I named are going to be fantasy relevant.
No. But he's got those weapons at his disposal to make him better.
Right. And if you can get him in the 8th round, that's where I think you're going to he'll be on a lot of winning championships when you get these guys late like this. That's where Mahomes, you got him way late, and then he balled out.
Well,
Mahomes
He was on a different level.
He's a fantasy.
Yeah, that was.
I don't got Wentz on that level, but
You're
I'm
throwing up
saying,
50 burgers like it's,
All right, so let's go back through our players and say, what do you think their ceiling and what their floor is? So Derek Carr, quarterback, what is his ceiling?
Like what, QB, QB number?
Yeah, what do you think his ceiling is? What's the highest you think he's going to be able to finish this year?
No,
if everybody finishes healthy, nobody gets injured. We'll just say
QB 8, 9.
Okay.
Ish.
I would say top 10 QB was my thought, so I don't think QB 8 or 9 is that far off, honestly. So.
And ceiling, you're probably looking at, or floor, you're probably looking at, I don't know, 18, 19, somewhere around there.
I think that's a pretty good spot, honestly. And what about Freeman? What is his top that you think he can finish if he plays all 16 games, no injuries, and this offense takes off like it should?
He could potentially be top 5 or 6.
I'm gonna say 3.
Ooh,
jeez,
that's rich. I mean, there's a lot of good running
10,
backs,
but that's just me.
I was gonna say 5 or 6 is if they're on all cylinders and no hurt. There's a lot of good running backs out there.
Right.
But his floor for me is like 12 or 13.
Okay.
He's going to be around. He'll be around RB1 status.
Okay. For me, Jameis Winston, I think he is a top 8 potential. I think his ceiling's 8. I don't think he goes any higher than that. I don't think he gets into the 5 or 6 range by any means because there's just too many good quarterbacks that are just going to be light years ahead of him. I think if he finishes in the top 10, I think that's a success for him for this year. So, and then Allen Robinson, I think he's in that, I say, low-end wide receiver. I'd say probably in that 18 to maybe 22 range. I think somewhere in that.
Wide receiver 2.
I would say middle to back end of wide receiver 2 is a comfortable. So somewhere in that 18 to 22 range, I think is a good spot for him. I mean, you're not drafting him like that, obviously, at the 31st wide receiver, but I just think he's got a potential to be a top, like I said, wide receiver 2. But
So for Dalvin Cook, for me, my ceiling is, I think everyone's jockeying for that RB5 spot now that Gordon's kind of relinquished it. So his ceiling is 5 for me. I think his low could be 15, or his floor, I mean.
I would say 4 or 5 was my thought process for him.
I like it.
And then Wentz, the same. It's basically almost the same thing for me. He could be all the way up to QB5. I could see him drop outside of the QB1 as a floor.
I think Wentz is, you said what was his ceiling? You said 4?
4 or 5, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say that. I think that's a good
The problem
potential.
with Wentz is if he doesn't get the 30-plus touchdowns and the huge passing numbers, he's not going to run the ball.
No,
so guys
he
like
doesn't
Watson,
scramble.
who are up in there, I think those guys have the better chance of staying in that 4 or 5 range.
Yeah.
But the guy that potentially could fall is Luck here, depending on what his injury looks like right now. Because I'm not going to lie,
His calf.
that's starting to scare me.
Who else has got a calf injury right now too? Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
And they're saying that it could be more serious than what they're letting on.
Yeah.
That's not good.
No, he was in a boot right
Yeah.
after the injury, and he's been in a boot since. So.
Right. And we're preseason starts tonight.
Yeah, I don't know. Derrick Henry, I was already kind of skeptical of him anyways, where everybody was drafting him. I just felt like it was going a little too high. We were going a little too crazy with the
Third round.
Well, the end of the season, Derrick Henry versus the beginning of the year.
It's the end of the season hangover. We all want it to be true, but it's just not.
But when we saw the boot situation in the calf and whatnot, I just was like,
That's
so,
all right.
Oh, you got breaking news?
Yeah, it's defense. But 49ers GM John Lynch said that first-round pick Nick Bosa has suffered a, quote, significant ankle injury, and he will not be available for the preseason at all.
His career is not starting off great.
No,
That's
really
not-
it's not.
Yeah.
All right, so
I feel bad. That's no good.
no, so some good questions from the listeners, and I mean we're gonna try to.
We love those.
We're gonna involve those, like I said, every week until the season starts, and then once the season starts, we might throw in a couple every week to see if we get some. But
Yeah.
I appreciate, and I know you guys do as well, the people sending them in, and I mean taking time out of their day to throw them out there to us. So, but for us, like bounce back players, I know we could have added other players. We mentioned Alshon Jeffrey was one. Kirk Cousins is another one.
Basically, the Minnesota offense.
Bell's one, I think, because I mean I know his bounce back is more so because he just held out. It wasn't so much that he played bad. It's just
DJ.
Well, yeah, and I say DJ because he finished trying to get at RB10, but he didn't give you RB10 numbers
Right.
all year.
Well, I will tell you, I saw somebody had posted on Sleeper saying, who do you think first round pick wise has the biggest potential to bust or be a bust and why? And David Johnson's name was thrown in there, and
It could be because we don't know.
When
Right.
you're drafting him right now as an RB5.
right. And I kind of looked at him like,
Bell?
well, worst case
Yeah.
scenario, he finishes an RB10 in his worst fantasy performance season in a awful offense with literally no weapons to battle, like to help out anywhere. I think at least the offense has weapons, and Kyler Murray I think is going to be a step up from
Josh Rosen.
So
And definitely a step
Yeah.
up from Sam Bradford.
right.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pure hot garbage.
the offense as a whole, I think, is different, obviously, but I think it bodes well for David Johnson, and I think they're still going to be down a lot of games, so they're going to have to throw the ball and move the ball through the air, and David Johnson's shown that he can catch the ball.
Absolutely.
So, I don't know. So let me ask you this because we've got some time still. Who, out of the first-round picks that are going right now, do you think has the biggest bust potential? Now, let's just take the Zeke. We'll take Zeke out of the equation. We won't
Zeke and
mention
Gordon?
We'll take Zeke out of the and Gordon out of the equation. We'll just say of the current top running backs and wide receivers there in the first round, who do you think has the biggest potential to bust and why?
I got one of each, I guess.
Okay. Who's your running back that you feel is the biggest bust?
I don't know if he's
potential?
considered in the first round here, but I'm kind of weary on Mixon right now.
He is right on the cusp of like 110, 111, or I guess what 201, 202.
Yeah, listen. I love the offense he's in. I love the idea of it right now, but with A.J. Green going down, the offensive line is really banged up. I could definitely see him being a bust. He's got a little more red flags for me now, but I'm still not shying away from him by any means.
Right. I think his ADP dropped about 3 or 4 picks once A.J. Green got hurt. And then once we found out exactly the extent of the injuries, then it dropped down even more.
Right.
So I think he's in that 204, 205 right now. Okay. So, but yeah, I think that he's the biggest. He's a big potential So
yeah, I like Mixon on that one as well. It's just that you lose your first round draft pick, your tackle, and then your guard retires out of nowhere. A.J. Green goes down. It's going to be bad.
Now you got a new coach.
Right.
It's just what promising now. Just want the exact out of the way.
Of the running backs that are currently in the top 10 picks, for sure, Connor is my biggest potential bust. And it's not because I think he's bad. I'm just not sure how this offense is going to look with Antonio Brown gone, because that was another threat. And they seem to be using Jalen Samuels a lot in the preseason training camps and stuff. And there's been a lot of talk. It even came out of Big Ben's mouth on a Sirius XM radio call-in talking, saying that they are looking to use a dual backfield in some form. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be a 50-50 split, but to me, that's a concern for Connor, because Connor was literally, and every Steelers running back going back for the last 5 or 6 years has been nothing but the guy, the ball carrier, 90 to 95% of the carries and snaps.
Right.
And the only time they ever were out was if they were injured or suspended. So I just think that's my concern with Connor, is if they truly are bringing in Jalen Samuels to use him in a 60-40 or even a 70-30, I think that's a concern for Connor, because Connor was successful because he was seeing nothing but the volume in that offense.
I just think that's the new way the NFL running backs set up, though, is a dual.
Well, they're getting beat up. I mean, that position takes a beating.
Right.
So if you can have 2 backs, that helps your longevity.
Right, and both have proved that they can be successful when they get the ball. So
I just like that system that Pittsburgh sets up for the running backs.
I do too.
At least for fantasy purposes.
Receivers, Odell Beckham.
Wow, that's exactly where I was going to go, too.
I just think there's a lot of mouths to feed in Cleveland.
It's new.
Yeah.
It's new
I would
right
say
now.
the
Right.
newness, and
Everybody looks great in shorts. We could just put that out there right now.
Right.
All these camp videos you're seeing of Odell, fantastic. Terrell Pryor looked great like that too with Washington, and look how that turned out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still, like I said, I'm still not shying away
not
from
bitter
OBJ.
about that or anything.
Yeah,
But yeah.
I think maybe it's this year I'm worried about. I think next year is where.
Yeah, I like it.
year in this
We all
offense.
know what he can do, but
right.
It's
If the lights hit just right and all the stars align, Odell Beckham could be a top 3 wide receiver.
breaking news.
Oh, you want to drop the break?
Do
news?
it.
All right, here we
Drum
go.
roll.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Breaking news.
We just talked about it. Texans have traded, or Cleveland has traded running back Duke Johnson to the Texans.
There it is. It's a good fit.
You know what? Give ourselves
Boom. Knowledge.
just literally talked about that.
Yes.
There you go.
By the time the show airs, that'll be old news.
Right.
Dang it. We were so close.
You heard it here
Yes.
first.
Yeah.
I guess
We
you
heard
could
it
say-
here
We
We
heard
heard
it
it
here
here first. Yeah, y'all keep talking for a second. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up Duke Johnson in our listener league.
Ooh.
Sneaky.
The listeners are gonna be like, "Oh, great, Duke Johnson. Oh no, he got picked up yesterday." No,
I like it a lot.
I did too.
That's what I said. I said if they truly believe, we just said this how many minutes ago, that Lamar Miller, if they truly believe he is the guy for the next year or so, they're going to bring in a complimentary back versus a J.J. who's going to probably would
Overtake,
right.
yeah.
So
So now
I
what
like
does,
Watson even more now.
so what does Cleveland do? Because Kareem Hunt's on the, he's not playing until like
I'm
week
sorry.
9.
I just heard Nick Chubb's ADP go through the roof right
Exactly.
Well,
there.
yeah.
And that tells you that they are all in on Kareem Hunt being back because they don't have anybody else worthwhile. I mean,
For now.
they do have A.J. Olette that we had interviewed in the offseason, but let's be honest, it's Kareem Hunt who's the backup, and it's
But he can't play for a minute.
yeah,
True. I mean,
9
you got
weeks
8
to be
games.
exact.
And 49ers still got to cut somebody.
they do
Yeah.
have to cut somebody. Indeed, I'm trying to pull this up while we have.
You better
Well,
get 'em.
they needed to get that done before it lingered into camp and
Well, Duke Johnson said he requested a trade, I think. But
I think the Kareem Hunt thing came out of left field for him, when they decided to get him on the off season. So someone had to be pushed out.
it's a 2020 draft pick. It doesn't say what compensation it is. It's probably a mid-round pick, mid to late round, fourth, fifth, somewhere around there.
I'll tell you what, though, I love Watson, though, and that Duke Johnson now.
Oh, yeah. That gives them another weapon.
He's one you can get late.
Not Watson.
No, Johnson.
Yeah.
Not Watson. Yeah, Watson. You're going to pay up for Watson. Unfortunately.
You're getting Rodgers, Luck. And Mahomes is going way early, like second round. But you're getting in the fourth round is when they start flying. You can get Luck, Watson, Baker, which I don't agree with.
Listen, if you're drafting Mahomes in the top 3 rounds, he better throw up a 50 burger or you ain't getting a return on your value. Just ain't there.
Anyways.
If you get like Tyreek Hill and then let's say you get like a stud running back, and you come back and get Tyreek Hill and then Mahomes. That'd be sweet.
Listen, I like the 3, but I'll still take my balanced team over that any day. That's just because it's preference, though.
I know.
So, all right. So I think that's all we got for today's show. Tell you guys thanks for joining us on the podcast side on YouTube as well as on DATV. You can find our apparel. You can find our articles on the hateful8ff.com. And then if you're still looking to get that edge in your local drafts that you're trying to walk out of your fantasy drafts feeling good about yourself, the averagenation.com draft loadout's still available, $10, and it'll be available up until week 1 of kickoff for fantasy league. So plenty of projections. Like I said, it gets updated. There's articles in there for sleepers, busts, all that stuff. So and then for us on social media wise, on Twitter, you can find me at jpickle th8ff. You can find Blackburn at jblackburn th8ff, and you can find Trimboli at ftrim th8ff. Podcast handle is the Hateful 8ff as well. So anything else before we sign off?
That's all I got. Appreciate you listening.
Yep, drafts are coming up soon. Better get on it.
It's gonna be Christmas soon.
I feel like I should have had a Christmas drop. Sorry, guys, I let you down.
It's okay, as long as it wasn't the Mariah Carey one. I can't do that one.
Indeed.
Santa baby.
Nope. That's all I want for Christmas is you, but that's okay. Anyways.
That's the first thing that came to my head.
Anyways, all right, we'll see you guys.
Stuck there.
We'll see you guys later.